Welcome to another episode of Exploring BlueSky, a new educational magazine docu-series featuring stories and interviews in BlueSky Country, from controversial and inspirational to heartwarming and even adventurous. We have stories about business and economy, Indigenous and local cultures, heritage, history, and tourism, sports, and adventure. On today's episode, we chat with John, the pharmacist at I.D.A. Pharmacy, about the quit smoking options that are available to Ashcroft and surrounding area residents. We stop by the Ashcroft Museum to learn a little bit about the history of Ashcroft, and we revisit the Japanese Mural unveiling with Dan and Marina of the Mosaic Art Studio. But first, our civic journalist Gareth Smart will let us know what's happening with the Cache Creek and Ashcroft Village Councils. Gareth?
Hello, my name is Gareth. You're watching Exploring BlueSky, and here is a recap of your local council meetings in about 4.5 minutes. So, Ashcroft started their strategic planning session with the CAO talking about the possibility of an intern to help out in the office, as well as a long list of projects that they are planning, not planning, and projects that are proposed by others. This includes things like finishing the water treatment plant, housing needs, reservoirs, tourism strategies, access to the senior center, the pool roof, the curling facility, and much, much more. There is also the possibility of a new housing development and even a 40,000 square foot warehouse at the Ashcroft terminal, but it sounds like the River Hills Estates is now off the table. Policy gaps were also brought up that revolved around the respectful workplace training, the village climate change actions, succession planning, cannabis legislation, burning bylaws, and our emergency preparedness. The meeting then moved on to the CFO's report on the current state of the budget that isn't fully fleshed out but seems to be well on its way. It was stated that several of the numbers in the report were highlighted, and the reason for this is because each highlighted item is up for a potential grant. From what it sounds like, there are several accounts that have several different functions, but the end result is that the village of Ashcroft has several reserves and several assets. We will have a full breakdown of the Hub Online network of these numbers once the finalized budget has come out. Moving on to the Cache Creek Council meetings, because there were two, the meeting of the whole and the normal meeting. We're going to start with the meeting of the whole. The CAO starts the meeting by talking about the possible funding for displaced forestry workers, a new public works employee, and the homeless. Councillor Pittman made a motion for a report to be made about this conversation that died on the floor without a seconder. A large portion of the meeting was set aside for talking about a special council meeting that Councilwoman Peters and Coomer had in regards to the training, budget, and policy. This mainly talked about monies for council members going to workshops and training seminars. The current system involves set amounts for daily things such as food. What is being proposed is a new system that utilizes receipts instead of a standard fixed amount. This look and policy stems from the Cache Creek Council being wary of the current budget in an attempt to be frugal and save taxpayer dollars. The main seminar referenced was UBCM, or the Union of BC Municipalities. Some ways that were brought up to save money were carpooling as much as possible, eat at the seminars when food is provided, book hotels well in advance to get the lowest possible rates, only send 1 or 2 council members instead of the whole team, set amount caps for how many seminars can be attended in a year, and when per diems need to be used, use the outlined CRA numbers as maximums. Furthermore, Mayor Tallarico made a suggestion that on an election year, the number of councillors that can go to UBCM be lowered as the seminar takes place right before the election. There is no point spending all the money if people may not be re-elected. Moving on to the normal council meeting, it started with a bang when Councilorwoman Pittman brought up the subject of paying Councilwoman Defoe for missed time, as she is finishing her schooling in Kamloops. This schooling will possibly have Councilwoman Defoe miss up to 4 meetings or 2 months. Mayor Tallarico stepped in and asked for a motion, which did not receive a seconder and died on the floor. There were several committees with no meeting and no reports. They talked briefly about the items talked about in the meeting of the whole. Then a subject came up about the possibility of new apartments and storefront buildings that would be built right off the highway next to the Sage and Sands Mobile Home Park. Communities in Bloom was talked about, and Councilwoman Coomer talked about the merits of the organization, but ultimately, due to the cost, this topic was deferred to the Cache Creek Beautification Society. In the question period, I asked about the current budget, which Mayor Tellerico responded that it is still in the process of being done, but there were only a couple more subjects that needed to be added, so it should be done soon. If you would like to watch any of these council meetings, you can find them on our YouTube page. Thank you very much. Now, back to Dana.
Thanks, Gareth. So last October, it was the unveiling of the Japanese murals. It took place here in Ashcroft. And we also spoke with Dan and Marina at the Mosaic Art studio to discuss that mural. Let's take a look.
This is the Sister City Synergy. This mosaic has been up since 2017, but has never been officially unveiled until today. This official unveiling of this Sister City piece is very timely, as Ashcroft and Bifka celebrate 25 years since twinning on July 23rd, 1994. This mosaic is not only an interpretation of two original paintings, one by local artist Royden Josephson and Bifka artist Kazuhiko Nagaki, but it is also a symbol of the sister city bonds of Bifka and Ashcroft.
When we were doing the Harmony Bell piece, they filled this table here with books, poetry, music, art, books, pictures, and they filled my ears with stories. It was. It became very evident that you really won't understand the Japanese until you go back to the history in the early 1900s. What happened in Vancouver in Powell Street, for example, and that is insanely interesting because that's. But also the other story is the internment of 1942 that came after 1941, December 6th, when Pearl Harbor happened.
Japanese people that lived in Canada at the time when World War II started. There was a huge amount of fear and angst that Japanese people may side with their home country, which in retrospect was perhaps being, to put it in the kindest word, was being overly cautious. The problem was that the Japanese people that lived on the coast were basically all being moved inland, and in BC that meant inland in BC, and were put in basically camps.
All the sketches in there are Marina's sketches from historical documents and from pictures that were given to us by the Japanese Canadian community here in town, and out of books, and chosen by the group that we pulled together, and Aki Kanemaru's calligraphy is in there, and pictures say Bob Nishiguchi and his mom from that period of time during the internment when he was just a little boy.
So that piece, I think the title is called Kanjo. That interpretation, it's a Japanese term, and there's the character in the piece itself that is Kanjo. That interpretation is basically forgiveness without resentment, which is the kind of message that the Japanese Canadian community here wants to leave with the world.
It was a passage that happened. It was something that happened that we are getting over, that we have collected ourselves together over that experience, and we've gone on in a good way. And so to gather all their experiences and to see that this is what they want to say to us. It's not an angry piece at all. In fact, it is a piece that wants to say, look, as the birds fly and people pass, we too this has become a rite of passage in our lives, and we go forward in a good way. And it's a spirit of generosity that causes us to want to go forward in this mode of forgiveness.
We must never
forget the injustices of the past, and we all must continue to work together to make sure that it never happens again. Thank you.
And you can pick up your copy of the Mosaic map at Community Futures, and you can check out Ashcroft's Mosaic tour. And not only are we the Mosaic hotspot in British Columbia, but also all of Canada. Blue Sky Country is rich in history with so many fascinating stories. We sat down with Kathy Paulus, the museum curator, to learn a little bit about the history of Ashcroft. Let's take a look.
Some of the old buildings in Ashcroft that are still here today that were back in the early days is the Opera House, built in 1889. And it would host operas. Any local companies could, the churches would hold bazaars, the athletic groups would hold a fall fair was in there. There was a wedding. Any political debates would be held in there. So that's one of our historic buildings. We also have the BC Express building, which is down right across from Heritage Park. We have the oldest Chinese community building, which used to be Wing Wo Lung, which is now Roll Gear. The Central Cafe, built in 1920, is one of our older buildings on Railway Street. This building is 1917 building. The Journal office is an 1898 building, I believe. So we do, and lots of the houses, the community halls, the churches, are all well over 100 years old. Ashcroft got its beginnings with the CP rail. Prior to that, Barnes, Brink, Evans and Bowes settled here, mid-1860s, and when they heard that the CPR was coming through here, they put up a hotel in 1883, and that was the beginnings of the town. Some of my favorite displays and artifacts in the museum are the Indigenous baskets. They are just lovely. Another of my favorite is the Chinese display. If you get a chance, go to the Chinese display. Just so interesting. We're so lucky to have these artifacts. And one of the kids' favorite displays is the coal mine upstairs. And that's a really popular place. It just feels like you're in a real coal mine. The Chinese came in, a lot of them came in to look for gold, and then a lot of them came in to build the CPR. But there are also several that came in after that, and they set up a large community down towards where Safety Mart is, and even past that a little bit. And during the 1916 fire, much of Ashcroft, the business, was destroyed, including the Chinese community buildings. So they relocated a little bit closer into town. So where Wing Wo Lung is now, where kind of Safety Mart is now, on both sides of the street, was the community. There was the Chinese stores. Yeah, so a large population here at one time. Those four people that I mentioned, J.C. Barnes, William Brink, Oliver Evans, and William Bowes, that settled here on what the town was, and they were the ones that built the hotel and preempted most of the land here. And they also donated, Barnes donated land for the Opera House, for the Anglican Church, and so it was them that actually founded the town. Now, and it was known then as Barnes Station. Now once the town was here, and the Cornwalls also, they had the first post office in the area. So once the town was built here, and they established a post office here, the government just wrote Ashcroft Station. So we became known as Ashcroft Station, and the Cornwalls still had Ashcroft. Now once their post office closed, we just became Ashcroft, and the Cornwalls added Manor to their name to distinguish between the two places.
Well, I can't wait to learn more about this rich history. Ashcroft has a lot of great programs that everybody knows about, like the many exciting programs offered here at the Hub. But there's other programs that are available for residents here in our community. John, the pharmacist at I.D.A, tells us about a program available to help get a healthier you.
Most people don't know, but the government actually sponsors 12 weeks worth of smoking cessation programs for free nicotine therapy for any eligible BC resident. So anybody in BC who has active MSP, there's the option where you get a prescription medication, so you can go to the doctor. It would be either Zyban or Champix. So that would be kind of a discussion with your doctor about that. They're both shown to help you with your chances of quitting successfully. The other alternative is nicotine replacement, so that would be the patches, gum, lozenges, or inhaler. Basically, that's just replacing your cigarettes with another form of nicotine to kind of help curb the withdrawal symptoms and the cravings while you gradually wean yourself off of that afterwards. Everything has side effects pretty much. With the prescription options, there's the two options. They have kind of different side effect profiles. Like Champix often the most common thing people say is it gives them vivid dreams or nightmares sometimes. So that's one thing we usually warn them about. If it's troubling to them, they can come talk to us. Zyban, often has some nausea, things associated with that, but it's kind of tailored the way you take it to reduce the chance of side effects while making it most likely that you can be successful. With nicotine replacement, there's side effects for sure. Pretty much it's the effects of nicotine, so it can cause some nausea, upset stomach, kind of feeling uptight, irritable sometimes, like a bit stimulating. So, but it's the same kind of effect profile as smoking, but without the harmful effects of actually inhaling smoke and all the tobacco and all the things in cigarettes. So generally, it's ultimately better compared to smoking. So if you have your choice of either smoking and having those effects plus all the negative health effects or the smoking cessation, then usually the nicotine products are more tolerable. There's a great website in BC called quitnow.ca. They have a lot of information. A lot of it is you have to be ready to quit, and they have lots of that sort of strategies to make sure you're ready before you do it. How to cope with the cravings, how to do that sort of thing. Because the nicotine replacement things, they can help, but there's still a lot of willpower involved. So they gotta be kind of ready to do it. So that's one of the first steps sort of thing, is be ready, and then you can come in and we can talk about options.
All right, John, so take us through the options that we have here.
Okay, so first of all, if you're a heavy smoker, generally I would recommend the patch.
A heavy smoker being?
Like if you smoke a pack a day or anything like that, or more. Basically, it gives you kind of a continuous stream of nicotine throughout the day, so it really cuts down on your urge to smoke throughout the day. If you're a more casual smoker, you can often try the gum or the lozenges. Okay. Those ones are used mostly as an as-needed thing. For if you're having a craving, you would either chew the piece of gum or take a lozenge and kind of hit that craving right away. But you don't get the baseline.
Yeah. What is the success rate for people that are casual smokers that are using the gum to quit?
Oh, I have no idea.
All right.
It is still a lot of willpower. I don't want to be daunting, but it's not a huge success rate. I mean, you still have to focus on a lot. I believe off the top of my head that it kind of gives you a double chance of quitting. I don't know what the numbers actually are, but it gives you a significant increase in your chance of successfully quitting if you use something like this.
Now, I noticed that you have an inhaler option. I'm interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, so the inhaler is this similar idea to the gum, where you just load these little cartridges into a little plastic inhaler. That gives you kind of the physical hand-to-mouth motion, they call often, for like similar to like you're smoking a cigarette, but without those harmful, actual tobacco and whatnot.
And it's actually not harmful for you.
I mean, the nicotine always has its side effects, but it's a lot better compared to smoking cigarettes for sure.
All right. And the lozenges?
Lozenges are kind of just like mints. You just gradually dissolve them in your mouth whenever you're having cravings, and that gives you the instant release of nicotine.
All right, and what is the difference between over-the-counter and the prescriptions in the pharmacy?
What do you mean by prescriptions? Like
Is
the
it
nicotine
prescription?
ones?
That stuff.
Yeah. So ultimately, we provide the same products. It's still the Nicoderm brand or Nicorette brand, currently at least, and it's just in different packaging for pharmacy dispensing.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm Dana Foster, and you're watching the Hub Online Network. Join us next time for more local stories and interviews on Exploring Blue Sky.